During a typical class in the Hope House Scholars Program, Professor Rob Reish connects the ideas of classical philosophy to the everyday thoughts of his students.
And I know this reading might have seemed difficult sometimes, but the idea behind the reading is actually something I know every single one of you has thought about before. And the basic question which Plato and then Socrates, who's in the dialogue, is asking is something very simple. Why should I do the right thing?
The big goal for me is to get them to see that the activity of philosophizing is something they very likely have done for quite a long time. Everyone, in my view, is a philosopher.
The program has another goal, too, one that may be more important to the women at Hope House.
Stanford. It's just, you know what I mean? I feel kind of important.
Kelly is new to Hope House, and it's her first time in the philosophy class.
It's kind of cool to see what goes on in a little bit and what goes on in Stanford University and how their classes are run, and something I never thought I'd do, you know what I mean? And to have it come to us here at this program is pretty cool.
In Deborah's and my mind, it was the goal was always to try and teach a course in a way that had more or less the same structure and expectations of courses we teach here at Stanford. They're run on the same calendar, so they run concurrently with Stanford quarter system. So they run for 10 weeks. We meet once a week for an hour and a half, which is more or less the same as a seminar class that's offered at Stanford. Just like undergraduates have at Stanford, there are writing tutors and writing assistants available for the women at Hope House. They have discussions, they have essays to write, they receive help in revising the essays, they get grades, and they have reading. So, you know, it's structured like a college course.
Professor Deborah Satz says that treating the Hope House students like Stanford students has been a way to empower them. It's something she noticed back in the very first class.
I think 5 or 6 times in the course of, as we were wrapping up the class, people kept saying, is this really what you do at Stanford? Are we really doing what you do at Stanford? And that's been a theme, I think, throughout the Hope House experience. Both the sense of their joy when they figure out what they think about something or confront an idea for the first time that's new or a new way of thinking about something, and also the sense that they could do what, the elite can do.
And it's a great opportunity.
Current students seem to feel the same way. Here's Joy, a resident of Hope House, in her second Stanford class.
It makes you feel like you're going to college. It makes you feel like somebody.
When we grade your essays, we'll have much higher expectations of that than in the journals. Okay?
Just teaching somebody vocational skills doesn't empower them to think, I am really, I have equal dignity, I can do this, I can do anything they can do.
Deborah and I will give you grades, in the same way we would grade Stanford students. So the old thing that you probably all experienced already in school, A, B, C, D, F, the usual bit.
We're going to get A, B, C, D, F. How are you going to grade us? How are you going to grade dope fiends? We're dope fiends.
Everyone may be a philosopher, but not everyone is a Stanford student. Taking a college class might be exciting, but for many students, Sherry says, it's intimidating.
It kind of made me really not want to give it my all because I don't like being threatened, and I feel that was a threat. And it might not have been meant to be that way, but that's the way I took it, and that's the way a lot of the people in here took it. Well, maybe that's all they've gotten all their life was F. Mindy, she was at the other program. She said all she ever did was fail. Paige, all she ever did was fail. So they're already feeling like failures at the beginning of the class.
Just some feedback. Is it too much reading? Yes. Not enough reading?
Too much.
Too much?
Way too much. I'm burned out. We don't have time to do our other
burned out.
We're overloaded with a lot of stuff here. We're doing 3 years of recovery in 6 months. So we're doing so the time that we have to have things done is a little overwhelming for me.
That's Sarah. Like any hardworking college student, she and her Hope House classmates are stressed out, and their complaints might sound familiar, at least at first. Here's Sherry.
Do they fail to realize that we have 3 other classes in the day? This is not the only class we have. Okay, then we have hella homework. We go to meetings from 6 to 9. So when are they supposed to read all this stuff?
Part of the problem here is a practical one. They have a lot less time in which to prepare and to do the work. They don't have access to computers in which to type things up. They're physically writing and rewriting drafts. And even in spite of that, the time they put into the production of their final papers is pretty amazing.
It's too much. You know, I'm one to do, I can't work in the classroom because it's yada, yada, yada all day. So I do my homework on the weekends. So Saturday and Sunday, I do all my homework for the week. Okay, so I know how to manage my time. I'm only one out of how many? A lot of them can't do it.
Time isn't the only obstacle. Many of the women at Hope House have big gaps in their own schooling, and this class asks them to think, to read, to write in ways they may not have done before. Here again is Kelly, a newer resident at Hope House.
It makes you use your brain, you know what I mean? It makes you like really think. And for the last few years, I haven't really used my brain like the way it should be used. You know, it's always been easy thinking. This is really getting down hard and thinking, and what's right and what's wrong, and you know what I mean, the right answers, the wrong answers. And I've been out of school for a while now, and just kind of getting back into paying attention and understanding is kind of hard for me right now.
The first year was actually the level of skill was much lower, like maybe 8th grade education, and in general, like, it was a miracle when we could get them to write like one paragraph coherently.
Mariana Lopez is one of a handful of Stanford students who have served as writing tutors at Hope House since the program began.
There are always one or two that have problems, like with whether it's just grammatical problems, they just don't know where to put a period or a comma, versus others who don't really have the reading comprehension to understand what it is they're even supposed to be doing.
Okay, turn to page 51, please.
Joy says the reading isn't so bad, it's the writing that's hard.
You know, it's kind of hard to say it by words, but like, I know deep down inside, I know there's an answer to this. I know, I'm just not really, we just try to make it so perfect to make it sound so good.
This is my second Stanford class, but I'm still having a hard time writing. I don't like writing too much.
I feel like there's a block between what they're thinking in their heads and how they can express it both verbally and in a written format.
Writing tutor Tammy G.
With the tutors, they're more expressive about how, oh, this is too hard, I don't want to do it. If they don't want to be pushed in that direction, it's hard to sort of motivate them and to convince them that this is actually a good thing.
I know deep down inside, I know there's an answer to this. I know, I'm just not really.
But Joy, what you just described is what happens to every person, even the people over at Stanford. I mean, you can ask Tammy or Mariana when they sit down to write a paper that they were assigned. You know, they have the answer in them. Is it easy to put on paper?
No.
No, it's not easy to put on paper. So
the length of the arguments they can make and the comfort they have in making philosophical arguments is not the same as most Stanford students. And it's largely a consequence, I think, of the fact that they haven't been asked to do a lot of writing in the past, and that's fine.
That, and says Sherry, it's a consequence of years of drug use.
I've been using dope for 35 years. My brain doesn't work like that.
In the classroom, Sherry points to a banner above the whiteboard. It's a list of the 12 steps of recovery.
You know, those steps up there, I can't even remember them. I've been trying to practice them for 4 months, and I still don't know them. And I get to 3, I might get to 7, but by the time I get back to 3, I forgot 4, 5, and 6, and 7.
I think there's a strong grain of truth in what she's saying, first of all.
Dr. Rob Malenka is a biologist at Stanford and a member of the Advisory Council on Drug Abuse at the National Institute of Health. He studies the effects of long-term drug abuse on the brain.
It's quite clear that some of the circuits in the brain, some of the areas in the brain that we believe are involved in adaptive, normal learning and memory are some of the same circuits that get modified during the addictive process. And it is not inconceivable that because of that long-lasting modification, the ability of some addicts to take in new information to learn in a normal fashion may be impaired.
Dr. Malenka says the long-term neurological effects of addiction vary from person to person. For the women of Hope House, it may or may not be part of the problem.
Again, it's going to be very dependent on individuals. There's going to be an enormous spectrum from people who had serious addictions who could walk into a Stanford classroom and do just as well as any student who had never had a substance abuse problem, to the opposite extreme where people were seriously impaired because of their previous drug use.